The last time this signal fired off, Bitcoin went up more than 50% in under 2 months, and we'll go over exactly what that signal was and also some short-term time frame analysis here for Bitcoin. And as always, we will start it off with some good old daily price action statistics. And of course, Thursday is actually the most likely day to close negatively out of any weekday since this bull market began in 2023 with just under 56%. 56% is what I'm trying to say. So I struggle over my words. 56% of all Thursdays during that time frame closing negatively. So it's not like super high, but yeah, a little bit of a higher probability of a red closure for any given Thursday, again, since 2023 began. But as always, we're most interested in the average returns, both for positive and negative closing Thursdays, because it gives us a nice obvious area of interest for bounces and pullbacks. In fact, we already see it today. In fact, in front of our very faces, yet again, it feels like for the infinity time now. And once again, Bitcoin has wicked off of the bottom end of that average returns range low at 150 actually, which is quite literally the low of the day. And you can see that it has provided the impetus for a nice little bounceola. Now, I want to repeat myself. If Bitcoin does reapproach that bottom boundary again, I would not look for another high probability bounce. It's only on the first pass. The first pass is the one that matters, and we can already see that have happened earlier on in the day. So Bitcoin actually enjoying more than a $2,000 bounce from that initial dump off to open up this Thursday. Anyways, on the other side, if Bitcoin were to play up there, which I do think is a little bit less likely today, but hey, crazier things have happened. Bitcoin were to play up to the average returns range highs, that would be about 125, 700, meaning that if Bitcoin were to bounce up there or around there today, I would be looking for a pullback, again, only on the first pass. We've seen this happen so many damn times. We've seen it many times, both live on video, live on live stream, and then also, of course, after the fact as well. This one being a little bit after the fact. And if you are a short-term time frame scalper, I just think that this is super simplistic play that you can pretty much, I don't want to say guarantee, but you can count on to happen very frequently, almost every day, but not necessarily every day. And again, that first pass is nearly always going to be a bounce with a quick scalp opportunity. This is using, again, the historical price action statistics indicator, which is available in the Characters Indicator Suite, which is available in the link description below for Teachable. God damn, that's a mouthful. Anyways, moving on from there, let's get into the actual topic of today, which is the volatility versus stochastic momentum setup on the 5-day time frame. Now, if you've been on this channel for a while, you know exactly where I'm going with this. This is one of the biggest, baddest setups that we've been following for a very long time. I am searching on my other screen for the statistics regarding this one, but it's a super simplistic setup actually. Whenever we see 5-day BBWP getting below 15 percentile, and basing off there, especially for a little bit of time, and then rising back above that 15 percentile number, the direction of the stochastic momentum oscillator, which right now is pointed to the upside, has been an extremely high probability for a big move in that direction. In this case, it would be a bias towards the upside upon confirmation of volatility getting back above 15 percentile. Now, as of right now, this is not above 15 percentile. We do see that volatility is currently at 1111. In fact, maybe that's your magical number. But for right now, this is in the background. It is likely to fire off very soon, I would imagine, as we don't really see volatility hang around the lows for too long. I mean, that is just a mathematical equation after all. It is guaranteed to expand at some point, and this very likely looks like it's going to be to me. And once we actually get it crossing that 50 percentile number, that's when the direction of the stochastic oscillator really matters. If it's pointed to the upside, we have seen these statistics over the full history of Bitcoin, going back to the literal genesis of Bitcoin. We've seen 16 of these prior signals. All 16 of them have amounted to severe moves to the upside, like severe moves to the upside. When I say severe moves to the upside, I mean on average over 41% move over the course of just over 1 month, about on average about 34 days. But that can take a little bit more, can take a little bit less. In fact, the most recent one did take 60 days. So, that was about 2 months, let's say just under 2 months perhaps. But a very big move, nonetheless. So I do want to go back into the chart right here and just acknowledge that one, if we were to witness that full-on expansion occurring, on this next closure, which will happen in 3 days, then this would favor the upside as long as this is pointed to the upside, which will be happening as long as Bitcoin is above 117,300, a big number to be aware of. I'm going to round it up actually there and just say 118 is a big line in the sand. I generally have a bullish bias for Bitcoin as long as Bitcoin is above 118. Below 118, I believe that we're going to get my personal wish finally granted, which is, a much more prolonged sideways and downside consolidation, which would very likely imply that the market cycle continues on for a longer time, likely, very, very likely into 2026, maybe even Q2 of 2026. But for right now, if we do see expansion happen from this region, I do think we're going to continue with that 4-year cycle, meaning that Bitcoin, and cryptos generally go parabolic into the end of this quarter. Maybe not all cryptos, perhaps, but very likely Bitcoin would be leading that pack. And then we get the same thing after the parabolic rallies, which is typically parabolic dumps. Again, for me, that is, in my opinion, very much bittersweet because, well, I would prefer stability. I like this sort of beautiful stair-stepping up sideways action that we've seen for the past 3 years. I'd prefer more of that, to be honest. But hey, if Bitcoin takes off from here, I'm not going to complain too much, just letting you know that my bias is going to be towards the 4-year cycle continuing onwards and forwards. Now, if we do witness volatility expansion on this next period, which is not there just yet, it's just a potential in the background. But of course, looking at this through the lens of all of the other setups that we've outlaid in prior videos, which I invite you to look at if you want, more dedicated look at those. I do think that it aligns for the background in which you would expect one of these to fire off relatively soon. Well, we have seen, like I said, on average, a 41% return, or just over 41% return with the standard deviation of just under 12%. So, anywhere between 30% all the way up to like 50% is kind of what you do expect from these signals. So big moves, 30% big fucking move, 50% even bigger fucking move. So again, I'm going to assume, which is not confirmed just yet, but let's assume that it does start to expand from here. Again, just granted the overall backdrop. And if we were to take Bitcoin's current price right now, which again is very likely going to be much different once this one actually does close, well, what would 30% to the upside look like? Which again would be the bottom side of the first standard deviation, within the next month and a half. Well, that would put us out at a date of middle of November, more or less. And 30% to the upside from here would put Bitcoin at about $160,000 US. Again, that would be kind of on the lower end of what would be expected if this setup does fire off. From there, if we were to go towards, a little bit more of the upper end, but still within the realm of possibilities, it's just the top side of the first standard deviation. It's, still quite likely actually. That would put Bitcoin closer to about 186,000 US dollars, if I have to say it right there. Yeah, pretty fucking crazy, man. So ultimately, as long as Bitcoin is remaining above this pivot right here, I am biased towards the upside, but it won't be confirmed until we see this above the volatility metric above 15 percentile yet again. Now you're probably looking at this past iteration right here and being like, crown, but didn't it just happen in July and this one was a failure? Well, to be fair, I mean, Bitcoin actually did go up a little bit from that number, but I'll explain to you why this was not counted as a failure iteration. The reason why it was not counted is because that cross the upside over here was happening in the critical zone, and I do not take any of those signals, at least historically speaking, in the critical zone. Why? Well, it should be quite obvious, and that is because when you're in that critical zone, it's just very, very difficult to keep momentum up, meaning that, well, meaning that you're just more likely to have failures. So, I have filtered those ones out. And so while this one actually did have some decent upside price, I mean, Bitcoin made a new all-time high on that one. Ultimately, I would not count that in this data set for testing that we did over here. Of all of the other setups that we've seen happen more or less below the critical zone for the 5-day stochastic oscillator, all of those have actually followed through with significant upside for Bitcoin. And I just want to, again, really highlight that statement. Anyways, moving on from there, I do want to get into, of course, yes, right here. Let's go over some of the other higher term time frame signals, then we'll get into the low term time frame stuff. But 5-day time frame for the HPDR, I just want to show the relevancy of that 117 to 118 number. Again, the 5-day median is coming in around that same level, so I do look at that as a really, really important pivot. Again, if Bitcoin does come back down below there, I'm not saying it's like a disastrous situation. I just think that it's going to be a much more prolonged sideways and downside consolidation, which could last, could take us another few weeks to resolve. And perhaps Bitcoin, comes all the way back down to the low 100s at that point. Very, very possible. I don't look at that again as a death signal for this cycle or anything like this. I just look at that as a good opportunity for the long term, and still likely this market continues sideways and up, maybe near towards the end of this year and / early 2026. But overall, I would look at that as a good stability sort of thing. Anyways, moving on from there, I do want to get into what else do we want to speak about right here? Yeah, as far as higher term time frame momentum signals go, we did see that 10-day time frame confirm hidden bullish divergence, which we identified was possible on Monday. This is using Caretaker's RSI, actually a part of that same package that has the HPAS. And this is what we like to refer to as phantom divergence, which is not like your traditional divergence signal, but we do find that they actually generally play out decently. In this case, this one has already gotten, a nice leg up here, but I do expect it, that in combination with the other signals that we've looked at does likely bode well for, another try to the upside, or at least a bias towards the upside, especially as long as Bitcoin is above 118. 118 is that major line in the sand, and also just whatever the 5-day 5 EMA is, which is actually 119 now. So perhaps, perhaps we should move up now the sort of failure point for an immediate bullish bias to 119, but that would have to be destroyed or closed below on at least a higher term time frame closing basis. And when I say higher term time frame, I'd prefer to see like at least a daily. I mean, being that this is a 5-day, maybe even a 2-day is probably more relevant in this case. But I think a daily would also get the job done. They probably, hopefully, would just close at the same time if that is going to be negated. But more or less, as long as Bitcoin's above there, I just look at it as a reconnect, another higher low and a series of higher lows as Bitcoin gets ready to, do what Bitcoin does best, I suppose. Anyways, on top of that, let's get into some short-term time frame analysis. Go back to CME over here, and we'll go back to the 4-hour time frame. 4-hour time frame, I do want to acknowledge, actually does have some hidden bullish divergence. I'm not so confident this one is going to play out well, but let's put in a failure condition for this one because it is quite simple here. Let's first let the goddamn chart populate. There we go. TradingView doing what TradingView does best, which is just suck. Kidding. TradingView does suck, but in some ways they are actually kind of nice. Anyways, 4-hour time frame does have potential for hidden bullish divergence. It will confirm it on this next closure in 6 minutes and 7 seconds. So by the time you have watched this video, if CME is still above, especially about 123, that will confirm that. And of course, that would maintain that bullish bias. This will also spill on over into the 6-hour time frame, very, very likely, but that one doesn't close for another 2 hours and 5 minutes and 50 seconds. But once we load this, we can see we have that same potential for hidden bullish divergence right here. And if that does confirm, which will confirm on any sort of a closure above 123 by the end of that 2 hour and 5 minute period, then I would be biased towards, again, Bitcoin reapproaching more or less Wednesday's high at about 125. And if Bitcoin can even just trade above Wednesday's high, or especially close even a 4-hour or a 6-hour time frame above Wednesday's highs, I would really be looking for this asset to retest the all-time highs. And I mean, from there, just putting 2 and 2 together and put it into context of our setup over here, it's really going to start to look like this one is firing off and is playing out if that does happen. But until that does happen, there definitely exists the possibility that Bitcoin is going to consolidate a little bit lower. Again, confirmed in the way that we view things on this channel on a closure below 119. Very specifically, we are now moving up the point of failure from, it was priorly 117, then we moved it to 118, now it is 119. So you can see how things stair step up as we get more and more confirmations to kind of confirm or unconfirm those biases. In this case, it is now going to be just around 119. Anyways, yes, so we've got that. We spoke about the potential for hidden bullish divergence here. That would be the more instant bullish. Sounds like a fucking product, instant bullish. Just apply it to your asshole, and green dildos will start flying in. It's amazing. Anyways, who wants to be fucking bullish, baby? Who wants to be bullish? Who wants to be bullish? I would like to be bullish myself, sir. That's right. We're gay for TA, and I'm I can't complete that sentence, man. We're on YouTube after all. Anyways, yes. Now, as we get back into the very serious analysis on this Magic Internet Money, we will now be speaking about some, of course, stochastic momentum oscillator action. And as we go over here to accompany that potential for hidden bullish divergence, I will say that actually, as of right now, this being a little bit more concerning to the downside. 4-hour stochastic momentum is showing momentum to the downside on CME. If Bitcoin finishes the next 5 or 6 minutes, 3.5 minutes below 123,800, right now trading 123. So I think that's quite unlikely to happen. I suppose we'll see where that one updates yet again. But as of right now, that actually is suggesting that this actually this very well could fail here. 6-hour time frame is pivoted at 123,500 or so. That one again doesn't close for another 2 hours and 3 minutes. So fair enough, maybe a little bit of hopium there. And more or less, if Bitcoin does trade below this morning's low, again taking out this 121, 150 low, even just trading below there, the probability of this one actually closing below that bottom boundary and maybe even getting close to 119 does start to get a lot higher. I will say that does start to get a lot higher. But again, 118 is my big bias buster. Until then, it's all short-term time frame stuff. If Bitcoin, comes down to 119 and bounces, that's completely fine. It's just another higher low. But again, to be very fucking clear, below 119, it's personal wish time. I love it. I love it indeed. That's what makes this shit fun. Anyways, I think that's a good place maybe leaving off on this video. We spoke about the higher term timeframes, going over one of our classic setups on this channel, and also related it into the lower term timeframes. Again, keep in mind all of these major pivots and whatnot as we go onwards and forwards. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. It's going to be the weekly closure for CME, which is not just the weekly closure, but also the bi-weekly closure. And from there, we shall, it should really help to confirm some biases, and we shall update again on tomorrow's live stream. Other than that, I want to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully next time.